Hello, it's Dr. O talking to you on the subject of how to manage stress. If you're watching this right now and you're feeling a sense of anxiety or stress, the two are basically the same thing. And just to let you know, actually, over the last 5 years or more, the number of searches on anxiety on, for example, Google have just continued to go up and up and up and up. And in fact, the amount of medication that people are taking is increasing as well. So it's no joke, and it's certainly a subject that we know a lot of people experience on a regular and daily basis. So stress can hit you in different ways. It can hit you, and this is the thing, you've got to be aware of how it shows up in your body first of all. So that's the first step, I would say. If you're experiencing some form of stress but you're not quite sure if you are or not, look out for the signs. Being aware of something, the first step to any transformation, any sort of change, is awareness. So you've got to decide, when you experience something in your body, what is this I'm feeling? Is it something bad that I've eaten? Is it a physical reaction to something, or is it actually a sense of stress? Typically it will show up in a physiological reaction and an emotional reaction. So for example, you might feel your stomach tightening, that sickness coming in around your stomach as well. For a lot of people it's this, it's a heavy breathing. Well, okay, let me reword that. It's actually a light breathing, but it's a heavy, intense sort of process. So now, the problem with that is that the breathing is in the chest rather than in the lungs, down deep. So often what happens is when somebody starts breathing up here and not down into their lungs, they almost cut off the oxygen to their main system. They think they are, and then it kind of goes the reverse, and they get this flood. And that can be very stressful for somebody. So if you're watching it and you get that sense, tingling in your fingertips, start doing this with your hands. It might be that you have sort of a twitch. Some people, they wiggle their legs, they do this. There's all sorts of things that people will do when they're feeling stress. So be aware of it. So the first step to any management of stress is to notice it. Once you've noticed it, label it. Give it a name. It could be stress, it's parenting stress, or it could be work-related stress, or it could be stress related to finances. So you almost need to kind of nominate what it is. You say, right, this is a financial stress situation. I'm not stressed about my whole life right now. I'm not feeling anxious about everything. It's about this particular situation. So that's really important part of the process, is being aware of it. So one, notice what's happening in your body. Then give it a name. I mean, you can even have a fun name. Sometimes that helps, creating a fun name. This is like crazy cash stress. I'm getting it again. It enables you to float out your body and observe. So that becomes step 3 as far as I'm concerned. Step 3 is you float out your body and you observe yourself. What are you doing physiologically that you can change? So the first thing to do maybe is to stand up if you're sitting down and get outside and get some fresh air. Start taking long, deeper breaths. And they can't be into your chest, so your chest is rising. It needs to be more into your belly, so you can see it, but I don't have much of a belly, but you're pushing your belly out and breathing back in again. And you're allowing that air to get down deep and fill those lungs. Oddly enough, when people have a cigarette, somebody who's stressed, when they go for a cigarette, they actually take a deep breath. You don't need the cigarette to take the deep breath, that's my point. So that is definitely the next step in the process, is going out, changing your physiology and allowing yourself to physically change your state. Drink a glass of water, because sometimes people can get quite dehydrated. You're breathing and then you start to get a bit dizzy and you feel lightheaded. Have a water, that will slow you down. And don't just go and gulp the whole thing, just a nice strong sip of water. Walk around, and then look up if you can, look around, get a sense of nature if that's possible to do. If you cannot actually get outside and see nature, you certainly need to stand up. Otherwise, the next step is to close your eyes. And in closing your eyes, I want you to take your focus to something that is beautiful in your life, something you've experienced as beautiful in your life in the past, or something in your life that's beautiful. For me, it's my kids. If I get to a situation where there's a lot going on, I picture both my beautiful children looking up at me like this, or greeting me in the morning, giving me a cuddle when they're all still sleepy. And oddly enough, that kind of brings me back to center. You really need something that's going to take your compass, which is doing this at the moment and waving all over the place, and bringing it back to center. Very important process. Now, that could be a quiet place that you go to. It could be a beach, it could be a mountain scene. I like the idea of a mountain near some trees blowing in the background, so I can hear the wind blowing through the trees, and then the sound of the river just flowing by me. That has a calming effect for me. Now, if you need a tool to do that, there's some great apps out there. One of the ones I use is Budify. If you go onto the iPhone, I'm sure you can find it. I'm sure they've got the same thing for Android phones as well. And that's a great app. And in there, they have lots of different, 5-minute, 8-minute, 12-minute longer meditations and relaxation techniques to bring you back out of that state of stress. Then the next step really is to, if you can do it, write it out on paper. What is the situation at the moment? See it for what it is. Half of dealing with challenges like anxiety and stress is just seeing it for what it is. So let's say, I forgot to pay my credit card payment. There's been a late payment on my credit card. I have to check my bank account. I don't necessarily think I've got enough money. I'm not getting paid till tomorrow. And all this stress, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? If you take that situation and you write down, I've missed the payment on my credit card. It was due in yesterday. I'm due in my salary tomorrow. At the moment, there's not enough money in my bank account. So I need to find a solution that'll help me stop getting a bad mark against my credit history. For example, if this is a financially linked one. And by the way, I'm looking down on this board here and I'm imagining myself writing it out. So that's what I'm doing. I'm writing it out. And then I'm going to write down what would be the solutions to this situation. So I'm looking at that piece of paper, I'm looking down and going, right, one solution is I contact the credit card company and I say to them, look, this has happened. Would it be possible to make my payment tomorrow and hold off marking my credit file? That could be one thing I could do. Second thing I could do is I could call up I could find another credit card, for example. Again, this is not advice, by the way. You're going to have to take financial advice if you're going to do anything like this. But I could take one of my other credit cards and I could do a balance transfer from credit card A to credit card B, enabling me to pay that month's payment on that credit card. It's temporary, of course, because I've got my salary coming in, but I'm just thinking, what are the creative things I can do? It might be that you're with a partner and you could say to your partner, look, honey, would it be possible to pay my credit card off? I'm going to ring them and say to them, this is what I'm looking to do. And if they say yes, I can make a payment from you or a friend or a family member or whatever. In other words, what I'm saying is, in that situation, for example, there are several things you could consider. And then you can decide from that which one is the best and the most appropriate. In doing that, in making yourself aware of it, in laying it down on paper, and actually seeing it for what it is, you suddenly realize, actually, things aren't so bad. I'm looking down on this piece of paper here, and I'm actually looking at it and thinking, okay, it's not quite as bad as I thought. There's several things I can do here. The problem is when it's in your head, your brain goes off and starts to look at all the negative connotations, the worst case scenario, where in fact you really need to be capturing on paper and looking at what your options are first. We haven't even got to the worst case situation because X, Y, Z has to happen first. So I think go through that process. The last thing I would say is have a think about other times in your life when you have had a similar situation, when you've experienced something similar to this and you got through it, or maybe you turned to someone else that had a similar situation to you. So I always say, who do you know and how can they help you? That's kind of the key element of this part of the process. Oh, I know my friend John, he missed his payment last month. I wonder how he got around that. So don't take the burden on yourself. Start to look outside and think about who you know around you that could help you with that as well. I think if you go through those steps, you'll find very quickly it's like peeling an onion. You get to the core of the problem and you will hopefully find a solution. And if you don't find a solution, it'll certainly calm you down and manage the stress and give you a chance to think more rationally in order to get to a solution. Hopefully that's useful. It's Dr. Rose signing out.